Hi, I am Jennifer Hancock, and I am a humanist, and I'm experimenting with live streaming on Facebook. Just want to see how it goes. And today, because obviously we bombed Syria yesterday, and there's a lot of talk about it on Facebook, and I've got a lot of humanists. Almost all my friends are humanists. I mean, not all of them. I have non-humanist friends, but all my humanist friends are intellectuals and they're engaged in politics, because to be a humanist is to be concerned about the world. We care passionately about making the world a better place, and we try to apply critical thinking skills and compassion and personal responsibility to doing that. So humanists by and large are very engaged in politics, because politics is one of the ways in which we create positive social change. Now, the problem with humanists is we don't agree on what the best course of action will be. And a lot of that, especially when it comes to matters of war and international politics, a lot of what you think is moral has to do with who you believe and what you believe is facts. And so critical thinking is absolutely important to how we analyze anything, because whether what you think is real or not is actually real dictates what you're going to think about any particular situation. And so critical thinking skills, is what you're being told the truth or not, is important. So let's talk about Syria from a humanist perspective, shall we? It's not an easy one. Obviously, the situation there has been bad for years. This is not the first time that civilians have been subjected to chemical weapons, and it's just the latest one. And actually, back in 2013, when this was happening, and Obama was trying to decide whether or not we should intervene or bomb, he said, we have this line: if Assad uses chemical weapons on his people, then we're going to intervene. Well, Assad used chemical weapons, engaged in human rights abuses, and Obama was not able to get permission to retaliate and to enforce that line in the sand. And at the time, Trump was adamant that we not do anything to Assad. He wanted us to stay out of Syria. That was their own business. And he said that attacking Syria for Syria's use of chemical weapons against their own people was a bad thing. It would bring nothing but trouble. There was no upside. And I actually think that at the time, Trump was right about that. There is no good solution to the Syrian problem. And that presents a problem for people who care passionately when kids are dying. And who doesn't care passionately when kids are dying? Everyone cares passionately. That's a very upsetting photo, and what happened is very, very upsetting. The question is, what sort of action is going to actually work to create change? And that's not an easy question to answer. We know we don't like what's going on, but we need to choose actions that will actually stop what's going on and make things better for people. And that's where we start running into problems. It's not clear that taking out Assad's Air Force is going to do that. Although, as Hillary Clinton just said the night before, these bombs are being dropped by airplanes. If you take out the airplanes, you can impact whether or not Assad can deliver these chemical weapons or not. And there's some truth to that. But that action in itself, and that's what we did yesterday with the bombing of the airplanes, but that in itself is not clear what's going to result for that, because for every action, there's an opposite reaction. There's a reaction. And in this case, the reaction may very well come from Vladimir Putin. Now, for those of us who pay attention, there's evidence that Putin may very well have supported Trump. There's allegations that they put a lot of money into a disinformation campaign to try and sway the American electorate towards Trump. We at this point have suspicions that Trump and his team or members of his team may have colluded with the Russians. But there's no evidence that that happened so far, and we do have to stick to what the evidence is. So it's not clear how Assad, with their ally Russia, who is run by Putin, is going to respond to America bombing a military base and an airplane base. And that's kind of the open question. Now, there's a good chance if Obama had done this, that we would have ended up in war with Russia. And if we end up in war with Russia, it's going to be over Syria. So Trump has gone and done this. And I think, what I want to do right now is not talk about whether or not whether or not what happened is going to lead to further conflict, but let's talk about it from the standpoint of was our retaliation the right thing to do? And that's something that's harder to tell, right? From a humanist standpoint, any bombing, any use of the military is tragic, right? Because it involves killing people, and killing people is bad. And you would only use it as a last resort, or if something good could come of it. So the moral reasoning is going to be, is it okay to kill one person to save the lives of thousands? And in this case, it's not clear that that's going to happen. Although certainly if we took out their ability to fly planes, we would take out, as Hillary Clinton had said earlier, their ability to deliver these weapons to civilian populations, because these are being delivered by planes. To be honest, I think sometimes the intellectually honest thing to do is to admit that we don't know what the right thing to do is, right? Doing nothing doesn't seem like a good option when someone is killing killing people with chemical weapons, but it's not clear that doing something is going to do something about that either. So as a humanist, I'm very, very conflicted. I do not like what Assad was doing, but I also don't like just random bombing. Now, I do think that sending a message to Assad that the bombing, the use of chemical weapons will result in retaliation from us to protect people from human rights abuses, and chemical warfare is considered a human rights abuse. I think that is the sort of thing that we should be doing. We should be standing up for human rights and against the use of military weapons on civilian populations. So that's where I stand, and I have mixed feelings about it. On the one hand, chemical weapons use bad. On the other hand, use of military to stop that, not clear. On the other hand, we are standing up for human rights. And I honestly did not think that the Trump administration would take the action they did, because our Secretary of State, Tillerson, said that, there would be no consequences for Assad. I also thought that Trump having good relationships with Putin, whatever those were, he wasn't going to do something that Putin wouldn't like. And of course he has. And Putin's responded by saying that our military is no longer going to not attack U.S. jets. So it remains to see what's going to happen there. Very, very fraught. I personally don't think there's any good solutions. That doesn't mean we shouldn't act. And I'm curious to hear what you have to say about this. Should we act? What sort of action should Americans ideally take, regardless of who the president is? And I suspect that we humanists are not going to agree. I have some friends that agree with what happened, that are humanists, that taking out Assad's ability to deliver these weapons was a very, very good thing. And I tend to agree with that. I think that's the right, humane thing to do. Should we get involved in the ground in deciding who should govern Syria? That I'm a lot less clear on. And I certainly don't want us to be in conflict with Russia, but if Russia is helping Assad commit human rights abuses, then who does stand up to that if not us? And this is the same problem we have on the schoolyard, right? If someone's bullying another kid, someone should stand up to them, right? And isn't that the courageous thing to do, is to stand up to a bully who's harming innocent people? Yes, of course. In concept, of course, the answer to that is yes, we should stand up to them. But in reality, with geopolitical conflicts, it becomes a lot more messy because of the potential consequences. And the potential consequences of standing up to Assad and saying you can't bomb your people with chemical weapons and you can't bomb civilians. There's consequences to standing up to him, as there always are, even with bullies on a schoolyard. There are consequences, there are retaliations, and we have to weigh the potential downside with the potential upside. And in this case, the potential downside is really bad, which is, I suspect, why the previous administration didn't really act, is because they were looking at that thinking, well, we have to weigh the benefits of acting on behalf of human rights and on behalf of the civilian population to protect them from human rights abuses. We have to weigh that against the potential consequences of our actions. And the potential, even if we mean well, our potential consequences could be bad. So I don't have a good answer to this. I feel very conflicted about what has happened, and I'm curious to hear what you have to say. And please, when you respond, and if you respond with compassion, using critical thinking skills and humanist principles. And I suspect conversation might get a little heated, and we should be cognizant of the need to respectfully discuss this, because we should be able to respectfully discuss this. And by the way, if you're interested in critical thinking and strategy development, I do have a course on how to base your decisions in reality. And this is one of those things that benefits from that sort of analysis. We are subjected to quite a lot of bad, fake information, and spending a little extra time to find out what's true and what's false improves our decision making and our moral decision making. All right, so see you next time, and let me know what you thought about this format.